We sang a song just a moment ago that in which we said you can change the world with your love. Think on that. I have some questions for you to consider. And I'm going to also remind you, which I didn't do earlier, that I have placed a notebook, at least one at every seat section. So if you want some paper, there are pens in a bag up here if you don't have one. And if you have any thoughts or questions or anything, you can write them down. And this is our topic, in the name of love. So here are some questions. What is love? Is it a spiritual discipline? Is it hard work? Is it, quote, the power that holds us together as a person, congregation, a faith, a society? All of these comments appear in the new version of Article 2 in the UUA Bylaws, the change that removed or at least altered the 7 principles. So, let's talk. What is love?
First of all, I have a question. Why did they have to change them? What they need?
The bylaws require that every, so many years, we have to review.
I read that.
Mm-hmm. And so there was a commission set up to do it. And the question of how they came to this or why is a wide open question, and a lot of people are debating it. But yes.
So I don't think in the 7 principles that word is used.
What word?
Love.
Right.
The word love
Right.
is not in the 7 principles.
I'm going to mention that too. And thinking alone. Very good.
Those principles are kind of talking about the elephant by naming its tail and its legs.
Well, that was one of the thoughts on it. Yes, indeed. Very good. Can you read the words? Are they big enough that you can see them? Okay. The petals. Yeah. Simple.
Yeah, right? I think it is, well, I think humans are supernatural when they're acting out of compassion, or acting out of love, right? Above and beyond their own self. So it's that spirit that is larger than self.
Okay. Extreme value. Interesting, because that's the name they've designated for these 6 objects, 6 words. They're Unitarian Universalist values. And if love supreme, love in the center. Very good. Anyone else?
Well, they talk about, I believe, a higher love, because I love ex-Parmesan, and I used to love to hang out in the bars, but I mean, it's a higher,
Relatively speaking.
yeah, it has different layers.
Yes, yes.
So it's a higher love. It's a love maybe even more mental.
Yes. In fact, it's common knowledge among Bible students that there are in the New Testament 4 different words for love. And words for love that are interpreted with one word, love, in our Bible. But, and the largest you've heard maybe is agape. That's the so-called God love. And there's philia, which is philios, you get brother. That's what the term, and so there you go. So we have this graphic which shows the 6 petals of a flower, as they call it, the petals encircling that central or ultimate value of love. And in the video that I showed here, you and I watched it, Annie, called Much Ado About Article 2. Yeah. This was done before it passed. This was voted on, incidentally, in the last General Assembly. And in the video, Much Ado About Article 2, which was done by an organization called Save the 7 Principles, just so you know where they're coming from. The moderator in that video said, many Unitarian Universalists are enthused about this graphic. They really like the idea of love being the central value of Unitarian Universalism. What am I doing? Am I knocking things around? Am I down there? I remember when I first saw this, and we remember the beginning, in the very beginning of this possibility of change, the UUA came out with one sentence that was going to be added to the 7 principles to make it an 8th principle. It was an awkward, it didn't fit at all. And so they went through this process, this back and forth process, and got feedback from congregations and from individuals and from organizations. And so a lot of people liked this idea, even people that weren't necessarily enamored with getting rid of the principles, liked the idea of love being at the center. And the dissenters said, yes, it's true that love does not have a starring role in the principles as they currently existed. But the question that they put is, what does it mean to put love at the center of this revision? Does it seem a simple, obvious choice? You know, that we are founded and based on love? Or is this just a feel-good platitude, a reference to a specific definition of love? What does it represent? The emphasis of the Commission on Revision was to embed into our bylaws a commitment to love in action. And they had a very definite idea in mind of what they wanted to do. And it is intended to move us toward radical love in social justice, and particularly with regard to anti-racism, anti-oppression, multicultural movement of our organization, and we're going to see that here. So the key phrase is love in action. And the new bylaw revision says, quote, the UUA will actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. You ready for some work? That's a tall order, isn't it? Let's take a look at these 6 values in their full and see if we find some clues to what this love in action means. Does it represent the love that we practice? So what you're going to see are the statements, and here's the first 2 of the 6. Now, what you saw earlier was in the red, the first sentence. That's kind of what I call the catchphrase or the explanation. And then you're going to see on every one of them, the following statement is a statement of covenant. Now, where does that come from? In the old bylaws, the 7 principles opened with the statement, we covenant to affirm and promote. Yes. So what they have done is taken the word and apply it in every case rather than a blanket starting statement. So interdependence. We covenant to protect earth. Do you see any action verbs in there? That's what they said was lacking in the principles. You know, they were statements of condition, more or less. These are statements of action. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships. Yes. All right, let's go to the next two. You see any there? Yes. The interdependent web of all existence. Free and responsible. Some of them are in here. Some are noticeably lacking. Can you flip to the next one? All right. What do you see? We covenant to dismantle. There it is. Anti-racism, anti-oppression. This is the nail on which I think our UUA is hanging everything. They want us to stop being white supremacists and stop being people of, not stop being people of privilege, but to recognize our privilege and to even the playing field. We covenant to transform and grow spiritually. There's kind of that nod to spiritual growth in our congregation. And all right, let's see the last two. What do you see? Where's the action verbs? How about freely and compassionately share our faith, our presence, and our resource? Well, that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. Yes. I noticed that too. Boom. They've also changed the statement before this is the introduction to the UUA bylaws, and so it's titled Values and Covenant. And in this statement that precedes these, it says foundation of love. It says love is the power that holds us together. And it says the spiritual discipline of love. Love is in there now. And after this statement, remember how we used to have sources? They're all kind of muddled in together now. They're not listed individually. Direct experience, words and deeds of prophetic women and men. You remember all of those? Jewish Christian teachings, humanist teachings. What was the last one? Earth-centered spirituality. What I miss? Another? So now they put inspirations. And I didn't put all this up on the screen, but these experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. And then listen to this under inclusion. Systems of power, privilege, and oppression have traditionally created barriers for persons and groups with particular identities, abilities, and histories. You getting the direct? We pledge to replace such barriers with ever-widening circles of solidarity. They have also pledged that we are now to be accountable to one another. It's written in the bylaws. It's almost like they're asking for people to take permission to watch one another. Because as they say, what is a covenant if it's not enforceable, if it's not measurable? This is where they've gone with this. So we ask, do you believe that Unitarian Universalism can change people's lives for the better in some fundamental way? That's a question that I got from a little book called The Almost Church. And I've almost finished reading it. And I'm almost considering doing a sermon on the book. But I pulled this question out. Do you believe Unitarian Universalism can change people's lives for the better in some fundamental way? And by the way, do you believe we should? You're free to respond if you like. Yes to both. One response from a Lutheran minister in the book: the major purpose of a church is to empower people to go out and make the world a better place in which to live. That's a Lutheran minister. The Episcopal Bishop, John Shelby Spong, said, "Love is the source and creator of life. Love is the essential power that deepens our relationships and expands our humanity." And then there's the prayer of John Wesley, who's the founder of Methodism. And his prayer is that I may become master of myself so I can be a servant to others. The author of the book, The Almost Church, said these voices stand in contrast to a common Unitarian Universalist message that a life of faith is an inner process of self-discovery. Now, what's the difference with that statement? What is that definition of spirituality? An inner process of self-discovery.
Inward focus. It's all
And inner-focused, individualistic, which is very typically the way we see ourselves as Unitarian Universalists. Very independent-minded. Don't tell me what to believe. We don't have creeds. We're all responsible for our own spiritual development, but we help each other do that. And so the Almost Church book says this is in sharp contrast to that interior look at spirituality, that individual look. William Murray, former president of Meadville Lombard, which is one of our Unitarian Universalist seminaries, said, too often we ministers, he said this to a minister at their ordination and installment, too often we ministers have understood our task as relegated to the private sphere, the personal lives of our members. We have encouraged their turn from a religion of love and justice to a religion of personal spirituality. Wait a minute. I don't have an easy answer for the decline in UU membership or religion in churches in general that's going on in this country. But my experience of Unitarian Universalism has not reflected that at all. Especially here in the South, which is where all of my experience has taken place, social justice has always been on the front burner. Now, some churches more active than others. It's always a handful of people, but it's supported by the church generally. We take up collections and we give to those in need. We do our Thursday thing. We're active in the community. We are individuals for sure, and herding cats is a very apt expression. But one of the most common statements of faith in our UU churches is this, and I'll bet a lot of you know it. Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth its sacrament, and service its prayer. That is said in some form or another, in almost every UU congregation in the country. Former Florida minister and district leader Ken Hurto, you know Ken, he's actually been to our church, our All Souls congregation. He reminded us in his very last sermon before retiring that our Universalist forebears, the Universalist denomination, in the early 20th century was known as the Love Church. And there was discussion at one time about calling ourselves the Love Church. He said, I so much want us to be the Love Church, embracing beloved community as central to our core. Whatever you think about the changes to our documents, I think we can survive it knowing that we side with love. Have you heard that term before? In all we strive to do, it is actually the name of our largest campaign, Side with Love. Here is what it says on the Side with Love website. Unitarian Universalists affirm unconditional universal love as a foundation and grounding for our actions in the world. We strive to be of service to our communities and advocate for change on local, state, national, and international levels. Through our Side with Love campaign, we amplify the voices of the oppressed. How? Through online media. We show up in partnership at justice events across the country. We lobby national leaders on immigration reform, racial justice, equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, religious freedom, and more. And above all, we work to make love real in the world. That is our Side with Love campaign. Mahatma Gandhi did it. Mother Teresa did it. Martin Luther King Jr. did it. We do it. Big company there. How do you reach out in love? So may it be.